Hello, welcome back to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder and CEO of the Bobby White Foundation, along here with my co-host.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your co-host, Bonnie Snyder.
And we have a special guest who I'm going to introduce in a moment. But first, we always want to thank John and Rob, our producer and tech man, for allowing us to bring this program to you. It's really important and really appreciated. So later we'll show you ways that you can help support our program. But I want to introduce our special guest. Her name is Kimberly Miller, and she works for the Pasco County Parks and Recreation and Natural Resources for 20 years. Wow. I didn't think you were old enough to be working for them that long. She started by working in the summer day camp program and was going through nursing school and decided that she liked public service, specifically leisure services, much better. So she was fortunate enough to have an incredible administration to support strengths in both active recreation and the vast outdoors. And where you work over there is the vast outdoors. Yeah. She recently was able to implement a program called a PAIR, Pasco Adaptive and Inclusion Recreation. It's a concept of inclusion that is near and dear to her heart, making the program a labor of love. And we want to welcome you to our show.
Thank you guys for having me.
So we kind of reached out to each other almost simultaneously a few weeks ago. Yep. First of all, talking about a program that you guys decided to kind of take the bull by the horns when you had a fellow coworker take his life. Is that
yes,
right?
ma'am.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
We had a gentleman, again, hindsight being 2020, we didn't really have the tools, but he was outwardly showing signs of depression. We didn't know at the time, we didn't know how to even identify those signs, but he did. He was at work one moment and then decided he needed time off after, again, showing a bunch of signs, and then we got the call from the sheriff's office that he had taken his life, so near and dear.
And I have to say, I remember that I remember that day.
Yeah.
I'm equally thrilled for Kim being here. Some disclosure: Kim and I are also personal friends. We've known each other for a while, but I remember that day that it happened. So I'm trying to think who called me, and then I called Kim, and we were talking about the coworker, and what had happened, and it does tie into what we're doing here. So yeah, Kim, we're, like Tammy, we are thrilled to have you here and have you talk about that experience and what Parks and Recreation is doing in light of, that situation.
So basically, sort of in a way, you guys didn't really, like you said, you didn't have any tools or resources and really didn't know what to do, but you're really, a lot of you are really jumping into this with both feet, especially with this event that you're going to put on in October.
Yep.
They're putting together an event, and it's for our county, to benefit the people in our county. It's Stomp Out Suicide 5K and 1 mile trail race and walk. And it's being held at Withlacoochee River Park over in Dade City. And I am so glad that you guys are doing this specifically because it's for our community, getting the community partners together. We met for coffee with one of her coworkers, Dina, a couple weeks ago, and had a really, really good conversation on how organizations like ours and Parks and Rec and can start to work together, because, you know, this suicide is an epidemic in our communities, and it's not going to, one organization isn't going to be able to stop it or reduce it. It's going to take all of us, you know.
So Kim, can we start with, you know, because one of the visions that, you know, we had for this, you know, for this show was to, you know, put a face on, you know, suicide, not only to give suicide loss survivors a place to come and listen to, you know, us talk about, you know, what it's like to be loss survivors, but also to, you know, it's a safe platform that, you know, we throw a lot on the table. And, you know, as we, you know, we talked, this show is completely unscripted. So I think what I would like, if you would, to do is, from what I understand, the coworker that you guys lost was a friend, somebody that you guys were close to. So if you're comfortable with it, can you put a face, you know, tell us a little bit about this person that you guys lost?
So for the young lady that went with me we met for coffee, her name's Deanna, and she runs actually the largest athletic park in Pasco County. She's relatively new, fresh out of the military, but again, when you're in the trenches working with someone every day and you see them and all of a sudden they're not there, I'm more Eastern than her, but for her specifically, I know that it hit home, like, just, you know. And then there's another lady specifically that works, they're kind of like buddies at the job, but I mean, her demeanor and stuff, you could tell that she was battling it, but it's like such a stigma, like when you talk about it, like, and unfortunately, again, we didn't have the resources or the tools. You know, we have a small program, but nothing concrete, like, hey, right now this is there for you, or so.
And, you know, what we found through doing this is that seems to be a common thread amongst, you know, loss survivors, you know, where to go, what was I supposed to do, what did I miss?
Right.
And, you know, Tammy and I have on multiple occasions taken, you know, a couple of books that were written on the subject and did like a review discussion on, you know, the different chapters. You know, and it is the, you know, one of them that hits a lot is the coulda, shoulda, wouldas.
Right.
You know, what did I miss? Could I have done something differently? And if so, what? So having this loss to, you know, the Parks and Rec family, if you would talk to us a little bit about this, I'm going to call this your baby. This walk, or this run, you know, or, you know, it's like, I mean, you're collectively, I thank you for that, I take that correction. But talk to us a little bit about this event that you have coming up, you know, the vision behind it, what is the, where do you envision it going?
Okay.
And
I'm
what
sure this is not the first one.
And what it means to you
So
to do this.
I know that you were a part of Juneteenth. East Pasco's never had a Juneteenth celebration. We teamed up with Advent Health that also is going, like, there's the marketing representative was just elaborating about the suicide crisis, the people overdosing. So it hit near and dear to them, and they wanted to jump on board. Parks and Rec took a direct loss with an employee. And then also at Withlacoochee Park, we had a patron come in and take their life as well. So, you know, just brainstorming with Deanna specifically, but, you know, I might not have worked with him every day, or, again, the guys that found this gentleman in the park out at Withlacoochee Park, they may not have known him, but it's still, it affects you. So, we just wanted to get together with people that like-minded, like mental rejuvenation, stress relief, like what can we do? Like, there's so many people going through things, and there's so many resources out there that we don't even know about. So, you know, everyone's battle's different, but we want to highlight the resources in our community, specifically in East Pasco, and then hopefully coming on in y'all's neck of the woods and expanding.
Yeah, it's finding the resources seem, and especially in our community, seem to be, you know, one of the big difficulties in situations like this. I know it was for me,
Right.
but even then, you know, 5 years ago, there weren't as many resources as we're finding now.
Right.
As more and more people talk about it, as it affects more and more people, like our suicide rate in our county is not going down. 18 and 19, we held steady. It was the same number, although the demographics changed slightly. The data for 2020 hasn't been out yet, but I can almost guarantee it's going to be higher than 2019.
And part of it with, you know, COVID. And everything else like that. You know, but to your point about, you know, there not being resources and people who have lost someone, whether it is, you know, a family member, you know, like Tammy and I, you know, or a coworker, friend, you know, in Parks and
Right.
Recreation case. You know, I know people look at me like, you should be able to tell us where to go. You know, I was like, well, you know my field. And I was like, wait a minute,
No.
mental health professional. And sometimes I'm like, where do I need to, you know, I know with my own loss, you know, it's like, what's there? I mean, thankfully I work for an agency that I had resources available, but not everybody does. So I really love the idea that this, you know, race/walk that you're doing is bringing awareness, you know, and the title Stomp Out Suicide, I think is very, I mean, that, I have no words, you know, that is, you know, if only we could stomp out, you know, suicide. So, I know, it's like, I know you're a person of few words sometimes.
I am.
You know, very, you know,
I don't know. She was pretty talkative when we were having coffee.
why you? Why now?
Wow, good question. Again, it just goes back, sitting down with Deanna specifically. She's one to talk outwardly about how this affected her. So she's someone that I'm in the trenches with every day, whereas she was in the trenches with her coworker. But just seeing what it did to people. I have a mom. My mom's battling lung and breast cancer, and it's just like everyone's going through all these battles. And I mean, meeting you, what you do for people that, you know, have taken their lives, like being a resource, like just meeting so many different people and realizing what's out there. Like at Parks and Recreation, I feel like we have an arsenal, and if we can team up with these people, that you guys are the stronghold. So if our forte is recreation, but we can tag into what you guys are doing, like.
Oh yeah, no, my brain has been spinning ever since we had coffee that day. It's like, okay, what can we start planning? What can we do? You know, and I have some ideas in my head here.
I'm excited about them.
So I think it would be, you know, health-wise and mental health-wise, it's a really good thing for organizations like us to team up with Parks and Rec. You guys have, you know, so many resources and outlets that can be very beneficial to the mind and the soul, you know, especially for people like us that are going through this. And, you know, and I'm sure, you know, much like me, you know, 6 years ago, would I ever thought I'd be doing any of this?
Right.
No. It's not something I would have chosen to do.
Right.
You're kind of you're thrown into it after an incident.
You know, Kim,
Yeah.
when you said just a minute ago, Parks and Recreation has an arsenal. Can you, what does that mean? Like, can you explain to our viewers when what is this arsenal that Parks and Rec has? Like, what?
In my mind, leisure service is very hard. It's just like grief and depression. It's specific to everyone. So what may be leisure for me, going out in the woods and being underwater, may not be leisure for you. You might like to sew. You might like to read books. So we genuinely try to cater to whatever your hobby is, whatever relieves your stress. Like, we try to cater to all people. So we have active parks, natural parks. I mean, you name it.
So can you describe the different, and to your point, it's like there is something for everybody.
Yeah.
So can you do a quick overview of Parks and Rec? Because when I think of Parks and Rec, I think back when I was a kid. Parks and Rec meant I was going on a nature walk somewhere in the woods. I was probably, there was probably a swimming pool that I learned how to swim
Right.
in. I might do some arts and crafts, However, I think Parks and Rec has grown, or has morphed into more than just, I'm going to age myself, I don't care, than what it was, say, back in the 60s when I was growing up.
Okay.
So can you, kind of give us an overview of, this is a bird's eye snapshot view of Parks and Rec?
I mean, it's evolving constantly. Like when you're saying what's happened back in the 60s and 70s, this rectangular building with a swimming pool, like, we've evolved. I mean, we just opened up Wesley Chapel District Park. Again, that's in the largest athletic park that we have. Passive parks, kayaking, boating, swimming. We have a new naturalist, and her job is she's working on the Pasco outdoors. So anything you can think of outdoors, Rebecca Jenkins is your girl for that. Again, we have passive, athletic.
Now, when you say passive, what does that mean?
Those are like our natural resource, our beaches, anything that doesn't have a ball field.
Okay.
So we've got so many resources. We have small community centers, large complexes. I mean, something for everyone. Aquatics programs, really big for us as well.
Well, being in Florida, that makes sense.
And the programs, are they, can you describe, if you would, the programs that Parks and Recreation has that might be, this is what we do that is children specific, if there's a such thing. These are things that are, teen specific, and then these are the stuff that we have for, say, old folks like me.
Hey, wait a minute. I'm close enough to your age.
Close, yeah, we are close in age. But here's the things that we do, that we have available for, the older population, or here's for kids, here's for parents, here's for grandparents.
So our administration, one of the big things that they are working on is that we do genuinely have something for everyone. So it's honestly going to vary depending on the recreation site that you're at, but there is opportunities from toddlers, teens, adolescents, all the way up to adults, seniors. Like, we genuinely try to have something for everyone. I can't speak specifically for the other parts of the county, but I know in East Pasco we do. Like, we're working on opening up the Dade City Armory. And again, that's our platform is something for everyone. So morning seniors and toddlers, teenagers, and then family events in the afternoon.
Now, is the Armory a building, or is that a program?
It is a building. It's the National Guard Army is out of it. But it's basically a huge gymnasium that sits there all day, and we're going to start utilizing it in October.
Well, I mean, I know I understand what an armory is. Being military.
It's literally a huge gymnasium. We're having to bring, there's no goals in there, so they're wood floors, and we're bringing in the goals, some rooms, but it's just basically a big venue with nice wood floors, and that's what you want.
Right. For me, it was like, I didn't want to assume, is she talking an armory like
An
we
armory.
had the military, or is it something else?
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness! My goodness. Have you, other than this coworker, ever experienced a loss like this?
I had a nephew that I raised since he was 5, and he lost his life in Clearwater, a homicide. Definitely, like, I explained to her, like, I went to school, after I got out of nursing school, I went for mortuary science at St. Pete College, and, you know, I've done funerals a million times, thought I'd process it, whatever, and about a year and a half later, I hit rock bottom, and again, those resources, they're not there. Even when people come to a funeral home, the resources aren't there, like, so,
Mortuary science.
mortuary science.
So from mortuary science to Parks and Rec.
I think the Parks and Rec would be way more fun.
Oh, I'm sure, unless you like mortuary science.
Well, I had a friend who, he did that for quite a while. He ended up being a handyman in retirement.
Yeah, you can go through school, you can get all the degrees, and you can direct funeral after funeral after funeral. And again, I thought I was okay, and then I just broke down about a year and a half later. But I needed to have that moment.
After you know.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think most people do. With my experience and hearing other people talk, when you go through something so tragic like yours or ours, the first year you think is the worst, but it really isn't, because you're not really there. It's the second and third year
Right.
that are the hardest, because everybody else goes back to their lives. Your life isn't the same. You're coming out of this fog, and you have a different life.
I think it depends on the person. You know, in my experience, what I found is let's say like the first month or so, especially after Patrick, my son, you know, I was in this more of a disbelief, a lot of denial. You know,
Right.
like, this is not happening. This is not happening. Or, you know, when if I, you know, rewind and go back to February, where, you know, when my grandson, when, you know, Aiden took his life, his siblings, you know, specifically his sisters, were in a position then and even now, from time to time, that they still don't view him as being gone. You know,
Right.
they process it as Aiden is in Florida with Nana on vacation,
Yeah.
and one day he'll come back home. Now they know, you know,
Right.
it's not like they are in, you know, like it's some kind of, what's the word I want to use? Alternate world, I guess. You know,
Yeah.
they're not delusional. However, it is how they cope. It's like, it's easier for us to process it as he's on a trip, he's in Florida with
Yeah.
Nana,
Yeah.
you know, than it is to, you know, acknowledge, you know, to focus on, no, he's really gone and he's not coming back.
Yeah.
You know, and I find that it hits us all in different ways, you know, and sometimes when we least expect it, you know, like, you know, I go even further than that to my grandmom, for instance. When she passed, it was like, why am I not crying? Like, I couldn't understand why. I mean, this woman who was like the most important woman in my life, you know, raised me from a baby, you know, credit her with, you know, me being alive, you know, to a degree. And I felt guilty because I didn't cry.
Wow.
And one day I was at work, you know, I was active duty at the time, and one of the guys that worked for me came in, you know, and asked me, you know, a very, you know, like, innocent question, you know, one of like, do you want me to throw that piece of paper away? And I just started
Yeah.
bawling. Oh, yes, you can throw it away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I crying? You know, what is it? And again, it's like when you least expect it. So I find it sometimes difficult to, or I try myself not to, you know, first year is going to be rough, second year is going to be easier, or first year is going to be easy, second year is going to be rough. Although, to your point, this year, going through Patrick's anniversary, hit me harder than it did the first year.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I was ultra sensitive.
Right.
Yeah, it is a process.
It is, and ironically, I was at Rainbow River all weekend, and I was like, I think I put the race on the anniversary of my nephew's death. Like,
Subconsciously?
I didn't put two and two together until this past weekend. So everything happens for a reason.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm really fortunate for the support system that I have. Like, my dad is a Baptist minister, so a lot of people, like, they grieve, or, the people are all there up to the funeral, and then you're by yourself. But I'm really fortunate for my family dynamics. Like, we all check on each other. My dad's church family checks on us. They cook. I think that's one of the big things that helped me get through.
The support is so important, whether it be family or friends. I know when I lost my husband, my mom came down, but before she came down, she immediately said, why don't you sell your house and move back home? And I'm like, back home? I've lived here for 25 years.
Right.
I left there when I was 17 years old, And she came down when we had his celebration of life, which we had at our home. And when she saw all the support that I had, all of the people that came over to the house that day, it was only supposed to be a few-hour event, and it ended up being people started coming early, like 10:30, 11 o'clock, and didn't leave until after midnight, And if it wasn't for, for me, the community support that I had, part of it from being in business for so long here, a lot of my business acquaintances or friends, just because we've been around for so long. And it's that has held me together, especially because all my family's out west.
Wow.
My husband's family is here. But, yeah, it's the people like Bonnie.
Oh, she was the one to call me when she found out, and I'm pretty sure it was Keith that told you. But
Yes, it was.
he called me, and she called me, and then like a week later, you were still, what can we do? Like,
And a lot of that, it speaks to, the relationship, at least for me, that I have with both of you. Because, like you, Kim, Tammy, I met at, one of my, a work meeting. And she had, did her presentation, for, this coalition. And, talked about the purple folder, 'cause I didn't know what purple folder was. It's like, I had no clue who she was. I just go to these meetings because, well, it's my work. It's required for me to go.
right.
And don't get me wrong, I love what I do, when I'm not, I think, we talked, this is not work. I do this because I want to. This is not a work requirement. This is I was asked to do this, and we do this. But anyway, Tammy was at this meeting with me, and I'm listening to, this presentation, and it was right after Aiden's death. It was like the first meeting that I had after my grandson's death. And I'm listening to her talk, and I remember walking up to her afterwards, and I was like, I really want to get involved with what you're doing. This is, this kind of hits home for me. And I told her I just left, I had just, come back from the Midwest from my grandson's suicide. And we joke about it now. We really do. It has become a joke between us. But, she was like, it's too soon. And I remember walking away from her, and I'm thinking to myself, who the devil does she think she is telling me it's too soon? And, and I was like, well, whatever, and I'm thinking, well, I have my work, and, of course, like to the audience, is aware of, and you guys are aware of, I work mental health. It's whatever. What does she know? And it wasn't until, I want to say, a few months later, we happened to connect again. And, actually it was at another work meeting. And, we just kind of we clicked. And, I was like, oh, hi, Hattie's, like out of the blue, we just started, when we see each other, we give each other a hug. And I was like, okay, I'm hugging this woman. do we really know each other? But that connection was there. And in one of the same meetings, it was either mental health awareness or, one of those awareness months. And I'm like, all right, I need to bring this, I need to bring something up, I need to bring something up. And, Tammy, got to the point before I did, but, it was like, hey, let's remember that there are, in addition to, people who are lost and people who are struggling and whatnot, don't forget about caregivers. Don't forget about loss survivors.
Exactly.
Don't forget about, this. And, and I was like, thank you for saying what I wanted to say, but you got to it first, and I applaud you for what you said. And this is when we were, approached by John, our producer, who said, you guys need to do this as a, you need to do this as a show. We really need a platform to bring this to light. And, it's like, you two need to team up and tell the story. Because I want to say it was probably after Patrick as well.
Yeah, it was. Well, because John was after me for several months before I finally gave in. I had to give in. And then I was like, okay. And then he's like, you need a co-host. And I'm like, okay. I was just going, whatever you say. And so he's like, you need to have Bonnie. Okay, I called Bonnie.
And here we are.
And it wasn't, really it was probably less than 3 or 4 weeks before we were started
in the
our
studio.
first,
We were
started our taping. And I'm not one to be on this side of the camera. I like being in the background. But having gone through this experience and with the help of another friend of mine who even suggested starting our fundraiser, Art for Hope. I ran things, when I had my gallery, we'd had art shows and stuff, but I never did anything like this. And then kind of as a surprise, I was just like, okay, well, actually I went to DeLynn, our producer's wife, and I'm like, DeLynn, I'm thinking of this. And she goes, let's do it. And then it kind of just started the ball rolling, was starting the foundation. And, being thrown into this and going through our experience of not having or not knowing how to navigate these waters after this. And it was, I saw it in myself, in our friends, in our family, and I just felt something had to be done.
Precisely, and I think I brought it up as well. Even myself as someone who works in the field,
Right.
there's this belief that I'm just supposed to know. I'm supposed to have the answers. I'm supposed to know where to go. It's like when this happens, it's you that we come to, and we talked about it during one show. I remember after Aiden, I was talking to Kira, his mom. I always call her my daughter-in-law. And people are like, well, wait a minute, she and your son are not married anymore. They're divorced. And I love her current husband, mind you. I want to make sure I throw it out there, to my audience. Guys, I am not dissing Kira's husband by any stretch of the imagination. I adore Nick. I love him to death. He's been an amazing, and continues to be an amazing stepfather to my grandchildren. We have a wonderful blended family. However, I remember talking to Kira, and we do those typical phrasings. I don't know if I ever said he's in a better place. I was not going to say that because, of course, I'm talking about my grandson.
Yeah.
But it's like, we'll get through this. It's going to be okay. Everything happens for a reason. When the roles reversed after Patrick, I can't even say the D word as it comes to my son, but when Patrick left and Karen and I did the role reversal, I just remember telling her all of those things that I told you after Aiden, and again we talked about this in a previous show, everything that I told you after Aiden, that was the stupidest stuff to ever come out of my mouth. But to both of y'all's point, there is a that phenomenon that happens that everybody is there like when the event is happening, everybody is there like after the loss. Everybody is there, that first, week to 10 days afterwards, because usually it is the death happens here. You go through the, processing, celebration of life, funeral, whatever name we put on what happens, and, I stopped counting how many people said, I'm never going to leave you. I'll be there if you need me, and yada, yada. And then it's like, so, and I can, I could probably count on maybe 1, 2 hands.
Right.
The people I know I can call, and I know they're there. And, doing, this on a weekly basis with Tammy, it's like, well, like we know. I can call her at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And, she doesn't, she's like me. She may answer the phone. Yeah, I'm still up. What's going on? Or it may be, 2:30. I see you called me. What's going down? And vice versa.
Right.
So it's amazing that, we have, I'm thrilled, just to see, Parks and Rec, and other agencies, organizations that you would not think of to do something like this is doing something like this.
Right.
So this is the inaugural, this is the baby, this is the first one.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the next event look like? Or is there going to be a next event?
I think it's very similar to Juneteenth. That the response was mind-boggling. Like, I smiled for probably a month after that event, and people coming at you. Maybe we should have fireworks. Maybe we should have the what's the name of this band? The Beatdown band perform. So.
Now, I know, can you explain what Juneteenth is? I mean, obviously I know what Juneteenth is, but, that was your baby.
Yeah.
You're right. It was an amazing, amazing event. Can you, explain what Juneteenth is?
It's kind of like Independence Day for people, African Americans specifically. It was the day the last of the slaves got word that the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed and that they were free. So it's basically an Independence Day. Again, we'd never had an event in Pasco County, to my knowledge, and we had one in East Pasco. And we didn't know it was going to become a federal holiday, but 2 or 3 days before, it was signed into law, and
So what happened?
very impressed with that
What
event.
did you guys do at that event?
Oh, my gosh.
It's basically a community event. So we had like a community choir, just different businesses out promoting themselves. We had games for the family. The entire event was free. Food trucks. It's a big community celebration.
Now, I get the two sides of the county mixed up. So where you are in Dade City, that's East Pasco, we're West Pasco. West Pasco did one a couple of years back, and very similar, where there was food, there was music, there was vendors, businesses promoting themselves. I'm not trying. I don't want to throw shade on West Pasco because I live here in West Pasco. However, I have to admit, I don't think I've seen anything like what East Pasco did, because it was like, if this event turns out to be anything like the Juneteenth celebration was, this is going to be an event that's going to be talked about for a long time.
I think East Pasco gets.
They're the redheaded stepchildren of Pasco.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Well, Pasco County is the redheaded stepchildren of Tampa Bay, but I think East Pasco doesn't get the attention I think that they deserve.
And I hate to, and again, I don't want to be, disparaging to, our county, because I work, I come out and see you.
All right. Dade City.
I come to Dade City all the time. But I think this is, that's another spotlight that needs to be shown on, if we look at, demographics across, not only our county, but even, state and even nationally, that, if you look at Pasco, West Pasco, lot of resources, there's access to resources versus, East Pasco. It's like, what's out here for this community? People think, where, if I put it in terms of West Pasco, if you want to put it in terms of city, country, city-ish, lots of people in a confined space. East Pasco, country, people are, are stretched out. And so, I think this, again, is another really good way to bring awareness to not only the issue of suicide, but to highlight the resources that are out there.
Right. I think one of the biggest takebacks from Juneteenth is that people actually talked about it. Like slavery, it's part of our history. So, it was really nice to see people actually acknowledge that it existed and talk about it. And again, essentially that's what we're trying to accomplish with the technical name of the event is recreate your mind, but the Stomp Out Suicide is pretty much the big draw. But that's what we're trying to get with this event, is to get people out, talk to people. There's so many people that are going through similar circumstances and support system.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, we talk about it all the time, the stigma attached to suicide, and people afraid to talk, people afraid to, even if they know someone that may be struggling, do they have the guts to say, hey, look, are you thinking of taking your life? Are you contemplating suicide? Say it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid, because seriously, wouldn't you rather have them, and I say this all the time to people, wouldn't you rather have that person mad at you if, they think, how dare you, then go to their funeral.
Right.
Yeah,
And then, too, they may be grateful that you even recognized, however minute it may have been, that they are struggling, and somebody does care.
And that, and you're right. That is key. When I think back, and again, another thing came about the show. We do a lot of self-disclosure. Like I think our audience knows
Pretty much everything about it.
a lot about us. Except for what did I eat for lunch today? Not my.
I had a gyro.
I had a salad.
However you pronounce it.
I had a salad.
I just pointed because I never pronounce it right.
But, and again, which is what I love about the transparency that, we have here, and, the fact that this is a very raw and open and, transparent, repeat that again, transparent platform. But, to the point of knowing that somebody cares is just what is needed. Knowing that someone recognizes that you're in pain, because I shared, as a cancer patient, a cancer survivor, I remember before, I want to say it was for my first surgery, when they, found the first tumors, I was at the neighborhood market, and, I was getting some, getting groceries and whatnot, and there was this woman, the cashier, she's ringing me out. And I don't see my face. Like, I don't know what my face is doing. It's, just kind of like someone looking like, are you upset? What do you mean? Well, your face. Well, I'm sorry, I can't see my face. I'm not in the mirror.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm checking out. Like I said, it was this young girl. She looked at me, and she was like, are you okay?
Wow.
And I looked at her. Am I okay? And I think I don't think I said it out loud, but I'm looking at her like, excuse me? And she was like, are you okay? And I want to say she followed it up with something like, you look like you need a hug, or you look like something's troubling you. Like, are you okay? And just the tone of her voice, you could tell it was like genuine concern. And I'm just looking at this girl, and it was kind of like I'm doing everything to hold it together. I'd just been diagnosed. I'm being told, I'm going to have to go to Moffitt. They're going to have to do surgery and all this other stuff. And I just I don't show my emotions a lot. I tend to do a lot of masking. But I just said, let the floodgates go. And I just started bawling. And I'm looking at this complete stranger telling her, oh, I just got diagnosed and I have to have surgery, and, you know, they see this tumor and it's really huge, and, you know, like, why me? Why me? And, you know, she was like, well, let me give you a hug. And I don't want to we don't, you know, preach religion, mind you, you know, but she was like, let me give you a hug. I'm going to pray for you. And I'm like, okay. And I remember walking out, and as I'm walking out, pushing my cart, I kept looking back, you know, at the store, like that just happened.
Yeah.
But I felt so much better. And, you know, couldn't find out. Every time I came in the store, she would be like, you know, how you doing? I've been thinking about you. You know, she left the store because she had applied for, and I found out where her, you know, why she was so deep in her faith, is she was getting ready to go to seminary to be a nun. So she, you know, she left, and, you know, she disclosed to me. She goes, "Yeah, I'm leaving." What do you mean? What are you leaving? You know, I only shop on days that you're here. You know? I mean, it almost became just like that. I only shop when you're here because, you know, you are like a breath of fresh air. And I tell that story. You know, I've told that story over and over and over again to, you know, both of y'all's points. Sometimes it just takes somebody to say, "I care." Sometimes it just takes somebody to, you know, to use your words, Tammy, have the guts to say. Because I'd rather you look at me and say, no, I'm not contemplating suicide. I am having a bad day, you know, or yes, thank you for showing that. You know, sometimes it takes that one person.
Right.
So.
And that actually happened to a friend of mine. He had a buddy who was a retired Navy SEAL, and they had a group of guys that kept, you know, checking in with this gentleman, and he's attempted on more than one occasion, and the last time he went and he found him just in time, and he's like, "Tammy, he's so mad at me," and I'm like, "But he's alive."
Right.
But he's alive, at least for now. I hope he's still alive. But yeah, and even when we had our Art for Hope event, our first event, we had a woman come who she was planning on taking her life. And after I think it was the second one, even the second event, we've only been able to have 2 in person. But after she heard our speakers and I talk, on the way home, she told the friend that she came with that she had been planning on doing that she was going to take her life. But after she heard us talk, she decided she could not do that to her son. And so we directed her towards help immediately, and she's alive today still and thriving. So, I mean, it's important not to be afraid to talk. I mean, granted, you know, we're always going to have those people that, you know, they don't want to hear it. You know, I shared with you guys when I first started speaking publicly, you know, I'd stand up in front of a group of people, and I could actually, when they found out what I was going to talk about, could actually see the expressions on their faces change. And the energy in the room change, and not in a good way at all. But by the time I got done, every single time, at least one person comes up to me and shares with me their story and thanks me for being brave enough to talk about it. And, I mean, even if it just takes one. And more often than not, it's more than one person. I had one gentleman, actually it was the last organization that I was able to speak to towards COVID shut everything down the next day. He had lost his son 15 years prior to that, and he had never talked about it.
Wow.
And coming up to me afterwards was the first time in 15 years that he could even talk about his son.
I think it is vitally important, you know, that we put a face on it, that we put a that we make it okay to talk about, that it is not, it's not as stigmatizing as, we think it is. It is not it's not a taboo subject. So, Kim, I want to ask you, like in the, as we're winding down, getting into our, last few minutes of the show, if you could share, what are some parting words, that you have for, the audience as it relates to, again, not only Parks and Rec, but, in addition to, this event and, again, Parks and Recreation's role in, helping not only with, suicide, but, mental health in general. I think it's an important role that y'all play.
All right. Again, I think I'm most looking forward to about that event is that there's going to be other people out there. Again, a survivor. You're going to have just so many different organizations, so many like different avenues of things that are available that you can do if you are stressed out. So maybe massage, maybe you want to do some cardio drumming. We have passive parks with kayaking and boating. Our active parks, our active personnel will be out as well, like promoting the classes that we have in our recreation complexes. Again, everyone's leisure service is different. Like everyone's stress relief is different. So basically shedding light on what we have available. And again, the biggest thing is talking about it. Sisterhood and brotherhood, as I said before, that's the main way that I got through my nephew. Because again, I thought that I was strong and I was tough and that I had dealt with it, and got a friendly reminder that it was still right there. And then I'm also probably most pleased that the proceeds from this race are going to go back into the parks to work with organizations like yourselves. People can come in. Again, we have the resources. We're trained. Recreation is our forte. Bring your group of people out and let's do something together. Let's release some stress.
What does it cost to use the parks?
Most of them are free. Some of the programs are like $3 to $5. Leagues might be a little bit more, but there's genuinely a lot of free things out there.
That's the key word in a lot of people's, it's like, it's
Well,
free, guys.
yeah, and especially in situations like this, because trying to get some health services is too expensive for some people. But, I mean, if you can be in the outdoors or do some of the, things that you guys offer. And we have been wanting to start a peer-to-peer support group. COVID shut us down, and so we're just still trying to figure out other ways that we can do it and then incorporate it. And I think now with this, our foundation can partner with Parks and Rec and do many events, out at the numerous venues that you guys have. Wow. I've been looking into getting some training on grief yoga, and you don't even have to be in yoga shape to do it. And I think it would be, that might be, something that we could bring to Parks and Rec to do, something like that, and just do little things that will help, those in our community. And I'm so proud of you and Deanna for putting this event together, because you really kind of did it in a short period of time.
We did.
But I think it's going to be really great and really great for our community, because that's the thing too with our foundation is we're in the trenches here in our community. This is our main focus, is taking care of our community, and that's what you guys are doing too. And I just think that's awesome. So, but we got to talk about a couple of fundraisers we have coming up.
Yes, we do.
And we had a little meeting last night that was really pretty good. So actually, we had a fundraiser Thursday night. It was a jewelry fundraiser. It's all my bling right here. But October 21st, we're going to do a painting with a purpose. It's painting with a twist, but painting with a purpose. And it's going to be both. We're going to have some in person and some virtual events. So we'll have a few people in the studio in Trinity at Painting with a Twist. And if my producer's still around here with an earshot, he did say that we could use the studio here to have some people here also, and then that would be virtual with us at the other studio. And we encourage people to sign up. Sign up is all open now on the website that Rob just put up there. And if you don't live here locally, you can still participate. You just go online, sign up, pay them, pay us for the shipping, and we'll ship you the kit, and you get a video instruction for the kit. And even if you can't make it at our specific time, which is 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock that night, you can do it whenever you want. So I want to thank Kim. I'm so glad that you came out here. We're going to get you and Dina back before this event, or Deanna back before this event, and so we can talk it up some more.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have anything?
You know, I mean, same. Love you.
Likewise.
Again, thank you so much for making the drive from Dade City, to our studio, to be in studio with us. We really appreciate this. And as Tammy and I close the show out every week, what do we say?
There's always hope. So come back and join us next week. Thank you so much.